What's up? Good morning. Welcome in. Happy Red Friday to all of you. I'm Farzin Vasugian here with you for a pregame live chat. Yes, it is game day. It is a Red Friday game day. Yes, I did say Red Friday. Red Friday game day. Let's do this. Obviously, no Red Friday live chat today for very obvious reasons. So we're just doing game day live streams today. Obviously, this is the pregame live chat, and then we'll do the halftime live stream once the game, the first half ends. Both players are in the locker room during the halftime period, and then we'll do a post-game live stream. That'll be the Chiefs Zone podcast after the game. The link for the video calls will be available. I think there was a little bit of an error in the last couple of games, post-game shows we've done, where the link was not working for whatever reason, because we hardly had any call-ins. Because I would look on my end to see, what the link would look like in the comments, and you could not click on it, which is understandable. I mean, if you can't click on a link, then no one's going to be calling in. So we figured that out, and we had a lot more people call in last week. So I think we figured that glitch out. So hopefully that'll be better after the game. I know a lot of people keep saying they want to call in, or they don't see the link, can't find the link, can't click on anything. So we figured that out. We solve things here on this podcast. That's what we do. That is what we do. All right. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I know some of you guys may celebrate today or maybe later on in the weekend. So hopefully everyone's having a great holiday week, traveling safely, all of that good stuff here. Hope you enjoyed all the football action. The first game actually was not bad, but the other two games, not so great. Not so great. But the good news about last night's game, as the Packers defeated the Dolphins. So what does that mean for the Chiefs? All they have to do is beat the Raiders today, and they will be the first team to clinch a playoff spot. How about that? Go clinch the playoffs. Go get it today. I don't think that the Chiefs have never clinched a playoff spot this early before. Now, I don't know what is the earliest. It certainly was never in November. But boy, and I'm sure someone has this out there. How many NFL teams have clinched a playoff spot before the month of December? I'll look that up right now. Someone has to have that. Which NFL teams have clinched a playoff spot? That's not what we're looking for. I think it's just like actively who's clinched a playoff spot. Yeah, I see all these articles talking about who can clinch this weekend. The Chiefs, Bills, and I think the Eagles or the Lions. Yeah, those there are only like 3 or 4 teams who can clinch a playoff spot. I know the Bills can win their division this weekend. Boy, that narrative has changed a lot. Remember when the Chiefs were in such a terrible division and they kept skating by with by beating up on their division, their weak division rivals? That narrative has changed a lot over the years. Special hug from Sao Paulo, Brazil. All right, Gabriel. Miss the city so bad. I mean, come visit. The city's always here waiting for you, buddy. And shout outs about, by the way, I know I say this every time, but it's always cool when people outside of the United States are listening, especially those who are overseas. It's always cool hearing people from a lot of people from Europe and Australia who watch and listen. That's always cool. Okay. All right. Let's get into some football here. Yes, I see Robert's comment here. Revenge for that Christmas game. Yes. Look, I know that's like the Raiders Super Bowl. That's like their only Super Bowl win, because they haven't had one they haven't had a playoff win in almost 22 years. So that's like the best thing that ever happened to the Raiders during this almost 22-year window. That game, I mean, keep in mind, that is a far different offense than what we have right now. Almost 11 months later to the date, a couple days after, give or take. So this is a much different Chiefs team. And by the way, what happened in that game? Those 7 seconds, the 7 worst seconds of Patrick Mahomes' career, him and Isaiah Pacheco. I'm not quite sure what was supposed to happen, even though I've rewatched that many times. I think Mahomes was trying to fake that and just take off on his own, but it was a fumble nonetheless. And that turned into a defensive touchdown, a fumble recovery, and then throws a pick 6 to Jack Jones. So those 7 seconds, that is what the Raiders got. They could not get anything going on offense. And then I can't remember if it was Amir Abdullah or Zamir White. One of them just went off for like a 40, 50-yard run at the end of the game to basically put it away. So that's really how the Raiders won that football game. And listen, give credit to any team who wins, regardless how it happens, who it happens against, all of those things. I mean, you never apologize for winning in the NFL. But to brag about it, like that's your biggest accomplishment in 22 years, which it probably is. That was more so Kansas City's screw-ups than anything else. Kind of like last night's game, or not last night, but yesterday's game between the Bears and the Lions. I mean, that game should have at the very least been tied. But because the Bears have no idea what the hell they're doing and they proved why they're a 4-win football team, the Lions were able to escape. And nothing wrong with the Lions being able to win that way. You never apologize for winning in the NFL. So to me, if you're the Chiefs, you just got to play much better than how you did last year. And they're already doing that this season. I mean, the offensive numbers are already better than where it was a year ago this time. And by the way, what was the Chiefs' record a year ago this time? I think they were 7-3 or 8-4, something along those lines. So this Chiefs team already playing better win record wise, offensively, much better than last year. Who's talking about drops with the Chiefs right now? I mean, listen, you've had some drops. You had one last week with Justin Watson, though he made up for it on the blocking there for Patrick Mahomes on that run. But in general, like, who's talking about drops so much? Kelsey, I mean, he's had that his entire career, really. So the drops are not a narrative. Injuries have been the complete opposite, where the Chiefs have been losing players left and right, still dealing with injuries, using their third kicker of the season. But for the Chiefs, they have found a way to adapt and overcome things. I know a lot of people keep talking about, oh, the games have been so close and they're not blowing teams out. Well, I just watched the Lions, and I keep being told that the Lions are blowing teams out. Didn't see that last night. I didn't see the Lions blow out and put away the 4-7, now 4-8 Chicago Bears. But people, that narrative only gets injected when it involves the Chiefs, which I always find interesting. Here's the thing. People don't realize this. The Chiefs have not covered the spread in a lot of games. They don't win by blowouts in a lot of games. I am picking the Chiefs to win 28-17 in this game. So obviously not going to be a blowout necessarily, but it's not going to be one where the Raiders are going to pose any kind of threat to take this game away from the Chiefs. I don't think that's what we see today. But this is what Kansas City's done for so many years. Even in 2018, when they were playing so great, they had the third highest scoring output. Now, part of it is because the defense was terrible that year, but the Chiefs, they hardly ever blow teams out. You just don't see that very often. I'm trying to think in terms of postseason games. How many times have the Chiefs blown teams out in the playoffs? They blew out the Texans after a 28-0 or 24-0 deficit. I think they blew out the Titans in that AFC Championship game in the second half. They also blew out the Bills on the AFC Championship game in 2020. And then the Dolphins last year. There might be another playoff game or two, I think, against the Steelers in 2020. But outside of that, I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting maybe one or two more, but there aren't a lot of playoff games where the Chiefs just completely blew out their opponents. So even in these, forget the regular season, even in the playoffs, when in the playoffs, the best of the best get in. Okay, maybe there might be one team below 500, but in general, it's usually the good teams who make it to the playoffs. And the Chiefs have had narrow, close wins over those teams also. So again, I get that's a thing. A lot of people make a big deal about it. But at the end of the day, all you can do is try to win. And the Chiefs, more times than not, have been winning football games. They're 10-1 right now. I mean, this is obviously the best Chiefs team we've seen probably since the 2018 team. And I'm not talking like stats wise or anything. But in general, though, when was the last time Mahomes started 10-1? I think 2020 was the only year, because the Chiefs finished the season, 14-2 that year. And the last game, the Chiefs rested all their starters. So it was really a 14-1 season for the Chiefs that year in 2020. Their only loss was to the Raiders. They avenged that later on in the season. Raymond says, I'm excited to see Pacheco and Hunt. Okay, let's get into this. Kareem Hunt. That dude's been a workhorse for Kansas City. I think with the exception of the first game he played, which was against the Chargers, And then I think the game against Buffalo, Kareem Hunt didn't get a lot of touches in that game. Kareem Hunt has at least 20 touches every single game. The Chiefs have been utilizing the rushing attack far more than we've ever seen in the Andy Reid era here in Kansas City. Andy Reid's had a lot of great running backs in his coaching career, both in Kansas City and in Philadelphia, but we have not seen him utilize a rushing attack this much consistent, especially now that we're in a pass-heavy era, I guess people like to call it that. We're seeing Andy Reid do things that we've never seen before. Now, is that the plan? Obviously, no. I mean, Kareem Hunt wasn't even on the team going into the training camp, but obviously you guys know the story with injuries and so many other things that have happened. And now it's just kind of working out for Kansas City because on November the 29th, obviously it's going to be December this weekend, the Chiefs are getting healthier. This is not something a lot of teams can say at this point in the season. You saw a lot of injuries in yesterday's games, especially in that Detroit Chicago game. I mean, there were a lot of injuries that occurred in that game. So the Chiefs getting Pacheco back, getting Umenehu back, they're both expected to play today. That is going to be a huge boost for Kansas City's offense. If you watch my 3 keys this morning, I talked about this, where you have Kareem Hunt, who's a workhorse for you. You have Isaiah Pacheco, who's capable of that home run play right there, especially with his speed. Now, thankfully, you have Kareem Hunt on your team, because if you didn't, the Chiefs, I mean, they would have to make a decision here. How much do you rely on Pacheco in his first game back? You don't need Pacheco to run the ball a whole lot in his first game back. Let him go out there for 10 touches. If he's feeling good, okay, give him a few more. But you can have a balance between Pacheco and Hunt. That's what I like about the Chiefs, where everything's falling into place. I mean, you went and got DeAndre Hopkins and Kareem Hunt, guys you did not think you would need in week 1. Obviously, Hollywood Brown was expected to come back. Rice was still on the team. Pacheco was not hurt at the time. So you thought that Hollywood was going to come back and this is going to be your football team. Well, now you have DeAndre Hopkins, you have Kareem Hunt, you're getting Pacheco back, you're going to get Hollywood Brown back. And the report yesterday was that, Hollywood is expected to practice in mid-December. And I know Jonathan Jones of CBS said that Hollywood could come back as early as that Christmas game. And I think that would be huge for the Chiefs, because if they don't play in week 18, if they're resting the starters, assuming they clinch the number 1 seed, a game before the playoffs would be huge for Mahomes and Hollywood. I would not want Mahomes and Hollywood to have their first real game together in the playoffs. I know people are going to say practice. Yeah, practice, but practice and the game, they're two different things here. For Mahomes, he needs to get a feel for Hollywood, where he'll be at certain situations, and figure out the timing of things. And obviously the same thing for Hollywood. He's got to figure that out with Mahomes. Yeah, they don't a lot in practice, but again, practice and games are two different things. So if they can at least have one game, I know it's just one game and that's not much, but I'll take 1 over 0 for sure. They do need that going into the playoffs, because if your wide receivers in the playoffs are DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy, with McCole Hardman and Justin Watson as your depth guys, Juju Smith-Schuster as well, I like that a lot. I really like that. Would have been nice if you had Rashee Rice, but maybe we can explore that next season. Obviously a topic for another time. So, and by the way, Travis Kelce is your pass catcher. And I posted this yesterday, and I think I don't get it. People don't realize certain things. Again, people just want to push narratives out there, even though these things are not real. Travis Kelce is actually one of the better tight ends this season. And again, I don't know if people just don't pay attention, or they just want to push a narrative that they see on Twitter or what, but we keep hearing this thing. Oh, Kelce's distracted with this, or he's old, he's washed up. He has the second most receptions among tight ends with 68, and he has the 4th most receiving yards among tight ends with 569. And by the way, he's 6th in the NFL in reception. So this narrative that Kelce's washed up and all this stuff, that's a false narrative at best. that is definitely not a thing. By the way, number 1 in both those categories, Brock Bowers, and we'll get into him shortly, because in my opinion, I think Brock Bowers is the offensive rookie of the year in the NFL. But I think with Kelce, look, you're obviously not getting monster numbers with Kelce anymore, and that's okay. I mean, for fuck's sake, he's 35 years old. He just had a game against the Bucs a few weeks ago where he caught 14 passes. How many 35-year-olds have done that? None. I mean, you're not going to find any who've done that. So what Kelsey's doing at 35, still not very easy. And by the way, what happened when Tyreek Hill was traded a couple of years ago? Everyone kept saying, well, Kelsey's going to get double teamed. No, I mean, they have been double teaming him. Has it succeeded? No. For defense, no. They have failed at that. Kelsey's still getting open. In fact, on ESPN Analytics, they mentioned that Kelsey is one of the best pass catchers in the NFL, tight ends and wide receivers, in terms of getting open and creating separation. So for Mahomes, he's got to be able to do a better job of finding Kelsey because he is getting out there, getting open. But I think a big part of why Mahomes is not being able to get the ball to these open receivers like Worthy on time, to Kelsey and a couple others, is because of the pass protection, especially at offensive tackle. Mahomes has been playing much better. If you guys saw what I posted yesterday, I posted the graphic. The first 6 games, Mahomes threw 6 touchdowns and 8 picks. Obviously not very good. But in the last 5 games, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Much better touchdown to interception ratio for Patrick Mahomes. And it's interesting because the first 6 games, everybody was talking about Mahomes and his interception numbers. No one's really beating that same drum right now with Mahomes. Throw just 3 picks in the last 5 games. Obviously, the narrative again, I get it. Narratives are there for some people, so they don't want to talk about it as much. But Mahomes is playing better despite taking 21 sacks in the last 5 games. He's taken more sacks in the last 5 games than he did in the first 6 games. Wanya Morris has really gotten worse as the season's gone on. Jawan Taylor, he has some good games pass blocking, and then he has some terrible games. So the inconsistency with him, that's never a good thing. But I just think in general, this is why you signed DJ Humphries. I don't expect DJ Humphries to start in today's game, but if Wanya Morris is not playing very well, you got to make that switch. Go to the bullpen and go bring in DJ Humphries. I saw a comment on Twitter. Someone said that, DJ Humphries is not going to play until Christmas because he needs to spend time learning the offense. Look, for what you're paying him, $2.2 million, up to $4.5 million in incentives, you're not paying that guy to ride the bench until Christmas. You're just not. There's no way in hell. I mean, come on, let's use our brains here a little bit. You don't need to be a scout or a coach to know this. Patrick Mahomes has struggled in some situations because of the offensive tackle play. There's a reason why you signed DJ Humphries. Andy Reid knows it, Patrick Mahomes knows it, and the offensive tackles on the team all know it. There's a reason why DJ Humphries was signed. Patrick Mahomes needs a lot of help at left tackle right now. So if Wanya Morris does struggle in this game, and we know Max Crosby, he'll change it up like a lot of defensive ends we see. And if you go to Pro Football Focus, you'll see Crosby does line up on both the left and the right side. There's going to be a situation where I think Andy Reid will have a decision to make, and he'll have to put in DJ Humphries in this game if Wanya is. I mean, what are you going to do? Let Mahomes get beat up by Crosby every single snap? You can't do that. You'd be doing a big disservice to your own franchise quarterback. I don't think anyone wants to. I don't think Mahomes and Andy Reid and the rest of this front office, I don't think they want that to happen. So you got to make that switch if Wanya Morris is struggling. I did mention I do want to talk about Brock Bowers because this guy played a really great first half against Kansas City earlier this year. The Chiefs struggled against him. They found a way to nullify him in the second half. I want to say they shut him out completely because he didn't have a catch in the second half. But the Raiders had a difficult time getting the ball to Brock Bowers in the second half of that game. Now, Chiefs coverage definitely has laxed since then. I know in the Buffalo game, people talk about the defense and the coverage in that game. I can cut the defense a little bit of slack in that Buffalo game because the defense was getting stops in the third quarter. The halftime score of that game, 16-14, was the same going into the fourth quarter. Kansas City's defense was getting stops, but the offense could not return the favor. The offense, the Bills had a 3-and-out, and the Chiefs had a 3-and-out. The Bills had a 6-play drive, and the Chiefs had a 6-play drive. It's like, man, your defense is getting the stops, but the offense absolutely could not get anything going until it was, too late. That's when you saw the offense score. So to me, I just think this Chiefs team, they've got to play better. The pressures are there, but the coverage has been bad lately, and you're not getting as many sack numbers. People have been saying, why is Chris Jones not doing anything? I think that's an unfair question. To say Chris Jones has not been doing anything, to suggest that or entertain that idea is just incorrect. Chris Jones has more pressures this year than any defensive tackle in football. But if you, let's just say a good pass rusher up front on that defensive line, they just need 2 to 3 seconds to get to the quarterback. I think that's a reasonable amount of time for any pass rusher if their goal is to sack the quarterback. But if your secondary is not containing these wide receivers, especially with the man defense that the Chiefs secondary runs, well, guess what? Bryce Young, he had no issues getting the ball to open receivers because the secondary just was not very good in pass coverage last week. Trent McDuffie kind of took a little bit of a step back. Nazeeh Johnson just has not been very good. I know somebody mentioned that Nazeeh Johnson had the highest grade for the Chiefs last week when it came to pass coverage. Let me just look that up real quickly because I do have it. I do have it up in front of me. So he wasn't the highest graded, but I guess he had a better grade than McDuffie. McDuffie's coverage grade was not very good. Nazeeh Johnson's, I guess, wasn't terrible. I wouldn't necessarily say Nazeeh Johnson. I don't agree with that grade. I just don't. Listen, I like Pro Football Focus. I think it's a great reference, especially their premium stats that you can't find anywhere else. Their grades, I use that as a reference, but I don't take it as gospel. I don't think their grades are always accurate. But I definitely disagree with the fact that Nazeeh Johnson had a good game in terms of PFF's grades. I definitely don't think that that is the case. I think Johnson is better for blitzing. Here's a question I have, and I don't know what's going on, and I asked this earlier this week. What is going on with Josh Williams? That guy did not play a defensive snap last game. In fact, he has not played a defensive snap in 2 straight games. He played 3 against... who did the Chiefs play before Buffalo? He played 3 against Denver. Why? I've seen Josh Williams do some really good things on the field. His rookie season, last season, I'm not saying, this guy's like Tyler or anything like that, but he's been a solid cornerback considering, he was a late round draft pick and the Chiefs have a very young group of cornerbacks in general. But we haven't seen Josh Williams play on defense for a couple of games. He's been on special teams, not on defense. And that confuses the hell out of me. I'm not sure what the deal is there. I'll read the Instagram comments for just a moment here. Alvagu997 says left tackle this season has been brutal. Mahomes has been rushed a lot. Can't afford to get Mahomes. Yes, 21 sacks in the last 5 games. Even though his touchdown to interception ratio numbers are way up compared to the first 5 games or first 6 games, yeah, they're not very good. JM Fry 36 says, hey, I have a question about the hat Andy Reid has been wearing. Do you know why it hasn't been released yet? I do not. I apologize. I'm not familiar with his apparel. Check NFLshop.com or check the Chiefs Pro Shop on their website. Just keep looking. That's all I can say. It is weird that he's wearing something that might not be available. I do know Mitch Holthus has a lot of apparel. Like he had this really cool Letterman jacket, but you could not find it on the Chiefs website. This was years ago. I remember it was like a gold one to commemorate 60 years for the Chiefs, but neither here nor there. So those are my thoughts on the Chiefs and Raiders game today. Robert says I'm 35. Couldn't imagine taking a hit like that at my age. Exactly. Yes. And listen, he's in great shape at 35 years old, also playing just fine. Yeah, sure. Got off to a very slow start this year, but play better. Jeff says can't watch another Prime Amazon ripoff. These games should be on regular TV network. Listen, I get all these complaints about streaming. Listen, if you're an NFL fanatic like me, you have to have a lot of different streaming services. YouTube TV, so you can catch all the other NFL games. You got to have Prime for Thursday Night Football and the Black Friday game. You got to have Peacock if you want that one playoff game that they're going to get. And I think Peacock has had one exclusive game this year. I can't recall. You need Netflix this year. That's going to be very interesting. So I get the frustrations from a lot of people that, they're not going to be able to watch certain games because they can't afford to pay for all of these streaming services. And I get that. I know there was a streaming service that was supposed to come out by now, and their goal was to have games from all 4 major teams in the United States, or 4 major leagues in the United States. But I think some lawsuits put a stop to that. I don't even think we had a name for that streaming service, but their goal was to have a lot of different sports on their platform. But the NFL is going to put a stop to that because the NFL has these big partnerships with Netflix, Prime, and all these other places. So try NFL Plus. I mean, can you get all of these games if you have NFL Plus? I would imagine so. So that's always a possibility, but don't quote me on that. If you are local, you can get this game on Channel 41. Yeah, Sandra, I see your comment, so I appreciate you putting that out there. David says, I say, put him out there and tell him to keep those fuckers off Mahomes' backside. I like that mentality. For Andy Heck, I definitely would not mind sending that exact same message. Not just the DJ Humphries, the entire offensive line. Why did we? Oh, whoops! I almost deleted that comment. Sorry, Dan. Why did we wait so long to address the offensive tackle issues? Here's my question back to you, Dan. Who was available right now? Before the DJ Humphries news came out that that Humphries is medically cleared, who was available? Donovan Smith. Okay, I mean, the difference between Donovan Smith and Morris and Suamataia is that Suamataia and Morris are young, inexperienced guys who are bad, and Smith is experienced and bad. So the only difference is experience. Their skill set is all bad. So you weren't going to get a difference there. David Bakhtiari was another option. I've always liked David Bakhtiari when he was in Green Bay, but he's dealt with a lot of injuries. And listen, I've always believed if you're available this late in the season, there's a reason for that. Listen, I think J.C. Jackson can be a good quarterback. I think Xavier Howard can be a good quarterback. I know Xavier Howard is dealing with some off-the-field stuff, so that might be why he's still available. But DJ Humphries, he was available because he was not medically cleared until recently. So there's a reason for all of this. They're getting pressures, hence ball out fast, no sack. And we talked to Sean Smith last week, and he mentioned that not playing with a lead has been a big part of it. And the Chiefs have not played with a lead in a lot of their games this year. They've trailed in every single game this season. So there have been a lot of situations where the Chiefs have played from behind, and that's definitely a struggle. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of hope for Suamataia. I know Louis Riddick, who I think a lot of people would agree is one of their NFL analysts out there. He had a lot of praise for Suamataia. He said that Suamataia was going to be an All-Pro, a Pro Bowl rookie, all these things, and unfortunately, not the case. Not the case at all for the Chiefs this year. I was surprised they didn't bring Mike Edwards back after Buffalo released him. Yeah, Mike Edwards quietly was pretty good in coverage for the Chiefs last year. So I was surprised. But I think the Chiefs are happy with who they have right now. Could be wrong, but you gotta trust this Chiefs team. I mean, listen, more times than not, I won't ever doubt Brett Veach, Andy Reid, Spags, Dave Tobe. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. Will I agree with them every single time? No. But you got to trust what they're doing. Andy Reid was on Sirius XM NFL Radio a week or two ago, and he was talking to Alex Smith and Bob Papa, and they were talking about, preparation and everything. And he mentioned use every resource when preparing, meaning every single film study. A lot of people make such a big deal about that blocked field goal against Denver. Oh, the Chiefs got lucky because that offensive tackle or center, rather, he was on that snap. He was not a center. He was playing more tackle. But anyway, Alex Forsythe, the player who fell. People are like, oh, he fell down because of the script or whatever. That had been happening all game long. And not just that game, all year long, Alex Forsythe has been getting dominated in field goal plays. He's been getting trucked a lot. It's not Kansas City's fault. None of the other teams that played the Broncos figured that out. So when it mattered the most, the Chiefs took advantage of Alex Forsythe's struggles. And by the way, if Leo Chenal did not block that, somebody else was going to get there. I think Karlaftis could have had that block also. So 2 guys could have had that block right there. And by the way, the Chiefs had a blocked field goal last year against the Broncos. So this is not their first time getting a blocked field goal against the Broncos in recent memory. They've done it before. They did it last year. So I think people just, again, I get it. Narratives. When people's preferred team does not win, they get upset about it. A lot of people are saying do the 7-day trial. You're telling me no one's available and you're not buying that? Okay, so then why is no one signing Donovan Smith? Why is no one signing David Bakhtiari? Why aren't anyone signing those guys? The Chiefs are not the only one with offensive tackle issues. I mean, listen, there are a lot of teams that have cornerback issues, and you've got some guys who've been good in their careers, like Howard, Jackson, Peterson. Why are those guys getting picked up? I mean, yeah, there are guys available, but are they viable options? Like, who are you going to find in late November? I mean, the trade deadline's already passed. So who are you going to find in free agency? Because if you really had a great player available, I mean, he would have been signed by now. DJ Humphries was not available until recently because he was not medically cleared. So, I mean, look, as much as I think J.C. Jackson would be good because he's still young, I think he's still got some left in the tank, but there are 32 teams in the NFL, 32 general managers. Some of them are bad. Some of them are very good, like Brett Veach. And if a guy like J.C. Jackson's still available, I have to trust that there's a reason for that. What are those reasons? I don't know, but they're available. Yeah, Menahu coming back is going to be huge for Kansas City's defense. Does that make any kind of a difference? Maybe, but yeah, I'm excited for Menahu. He was suspended the first 6 games last year, and then he played 11 games and had 7 sacks. I mean, 7 sacks in 11 games is pretty good. I mean, he could have had double-digit sacks if he played a full season. And he also had a really good performance in the AFC Championship game against Lamar Jackson. Unfortunately, that was the game where he got injured, got the strip sack. Unfortunately, the Chiefs could not score off of that. But, man, Kansas City, they need Omenihu back for sure. That defensive line with Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, Omenihu, I like that unit a lot. And again, I know the sack numbers are not there, but the pressure numbers certainly are. So hopefully the Chiefs can be better about that in this game. I'll read a couple more comments and then get out of here. What about Rashee Rice? I think this is asking if Rice is going to come back. I don't think so. Not for this season, at least. And then he'll have the suspension more likely than not. I've said this before, so I'll keep it short. I don't think that suspension is going to be as big and hefty as a lot of people are anticipating. I think the longer this goes on, I think the more likely it is he's just going to get a 2 to 4 game suspension. I don't think people realize, like, the NFL with some of these suspensions they hand out, they're not as big as they anticipate it to be sometimes. So I know for a while I kept saying it was going to be about a half a season suspension because we all thought the suspension was going to come this year. I really thought that. But I just think the longer it takes, that number will go down. But anyway, my point in bringing that up is that'll give him more time to recover. Not the ideal way of everything happening, but that's just kind of the way it all worked out. David says it seems really strange. They have the game on today at 1 p.m. Almost everyone works today. Yeah, I get that. I mean, listen, I don't know how many percentage of Americans are working today. I would imagine there are a lot of people who are off. But yeah, there are going to be a lot of people who are working as well. I mean, grocery stores are open across the country, so there are going to be a lot of people who are going to miss out today. A lot of stores are open, obviously. Black Friday, yeah, of course. I don't know. Is Black Friday the same as it was once before? I don't think it really is, but neither here nor there. They did this last year. I think that was the first Black Friday game they did. So I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are. And again, this is exclusively on Prime. It's not like you can have the Nielsen ratings get involved with this. So they can kind of say whatever they want. I remember Peacock. People were complaining about the playoff game being on Peacock. Peacock said they had 23 million viewers, I think it was. I mean, that number went in their favor. Could they be making that number up? Sure. We might not know that. So these streaming services, they don't have to publicly share their numbers, or at least not honestly. No, I mean, I get you, man. I mean, we all want the same thing. It's just, I think the Chiefs had a lot of hope for Suamataia. They traded up one spot to get him. I know it's just one spot, but I don't know, man. The Chiefs definitely have decisions to make this offseason. I mean, if DJ Humphries plays great and they think he can do it again next year, they got a decision with him. Hopkins, Hollywood, guys who you did not have on the team a year ago, who are very good. I mean, I know Hopkins is getting older, but he's certainly made a difference on this team. He looks like he's very happy here. What's going to happen with him? Hollywood, I think somebody was asking me the other night, can the Chiefs bring back Hollywood and Hopkins? Hopkins, maybe. Hollywood, I think you can get Hollywood for a cheaper price because this year they signed him for 1 year, $8 million. Considering the fact that he's been hurt for almost all of this year, you can probably get him back for a cheaper, unless he absolutely just dominates in the playoffs. Then things get a little interesting there. So I don't know. I'm very curious. I'd love for them to come back. I know people mention Hollywood's injury history, and I get that. But, man, I just feel like there's so much potential there with Hollywood that you got to consider him. I think if you're the Chiefs, you got to consider a wide receiver, maybe not in the first round of the draft, but somewhere maybe in the third round. The Chiefs do have 2 third-round picks. Maybe you got to look for a speedster there also, especially with the right suspension. I think that's maybe a big reason why you got to be aggressive to bring back Hopkins and Hollywood because of the right suspension. And got to remember, Trey Smith is a guy you got to pay also. How do the Chiefs manage that one? I'm very, very curious. This is Casey Chiefs related, but not about the game. Holiday Touchdown is on Hallmark channel tomorrow night. Yes. I'll be honest, this kind of thing is just those kinds of movies are not my thing. Listen, those Hallmark, I hardly watch Hallmark movies. I know some people who do. I mean, listen, I'm sure they're good and people enjoy them, especially during the holidays. I don't know. I'll be honest, that one looks really corny, but I'm going to watch it because it's Chiefs related. That'll be interesting. I will be watching. I will be watching indeed. That's just not my thing, but I'm doing it because it's the Chiefs. Black Friday is mainly online. I don't think people are out trampling one another anymore. Hopefully not. Yeah, I remember those days. People filming fights on Black Friday. Those days are gone. Yeah, Bolton's gonna be a very tough one. Man, listen, I know there are a lot of Mizzou fans. You got to prioritize Trey Smith over Nick Bolton. And I hate to say that because Nick Bolton got up to a slow start in the first 2 games, but he's played great since then. And I don't want to see Nick Bolton wear another team's jersey either. But I don't want to see Trey Smith wear another team's jersey either. I know the Chiefs drafted 3 offensive linemen last year. They drafted 2 interior offensive linemen that they like and they think could be future players that they use in CJ Hansen and Hunter Norzad. But man, it's so hard to replace Trey Smith. It is very hard to replace Trey Smith. Maybe that's why you drafted Hunter Norzad and CJ Hansen, because you don't know if you can retain Trey Smith. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. Chiefs have a lot of things to consider, both with the wide receivers and the offensive line. A couple of pieces on defense, but still have a young defense. But in 2026, you got to think about Trent McDuffie. You got to think about George Karlaftis. Yeah, there are decisions to be made at that time. But that's not for a couple of years. Yeah, appreciate you, Dan. Thank you. He has been a game changer, and that's been a big. Listen, those touchdown interception comparisons, the last 5 games, DeAndre Hopkins has been on the team. And DeAndre Hopkins not playing a lot of snaps. I don't know if people realize this. He had the 3rd or 4th most snaps by a wide receiver. Let me look that up real quickly just to be sure. Justin Watson had the most snaps by a wide receiver against the Panthers last week. 2nd, I think, was Xavier Worthy. And then 3rd, I believe, was Hopkins, or was it Juju? Watson played 65% of the snaps. Worthy played 64%. Juju played 55%, and Hopkins played 45%. to give you the actual numbers, Watson played 48 snaps, Worthy 47 snaps, Juju 41 snaps, and Hopkins played 33 snaps. The other wide receiver, McCole Hardman, played 4 snaps. Man, I remember when McCole Hardman was such a threat his rookie year and his second year on offense. It's just been disappointing to see that he has not panned out the way they want him to. He has not really been a big special teams guy. They got chick flicks. Exactly. Let's see. Read a couple more and we'll get out of here. Remember, Chiefs, if they win, they are in the playoffs. Yeah, I hope so too. Need to keep that offensive line intact. Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, I'll say this. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If Patrick Mahomes has the best offensive line in football, he has the best interior offensive line. He doesn't have the best offensive line. But if he does have 2 just above average offensive tackles, they don't have to be, you don't have to have Willie Rofe, Eric Fisher, Mitchell Schwartz type of offensive tackles, Jim Tyrer. You just need above average offensive tackles. And if Mahomes has that, I think he can throw the ball to anyone and succeed. Even Sky Moore. Like, I know Sky Moore drops the ball a lot, but if Mahomes has enough time, maybe he can eventually get it to Sky Moore for a big play. I don't know. I'm being facetious. I know Sky Moore probably going to be his last year with the Chiefs, but my point is, I think Mahomes can get the ball to anyone as long as he has the right protection there. He has not had a good offensive tackle for 3 seasons now. DJ Humphries hasn't even played a snap, and I'd be willing to consider him the best offensive tackle the Chiefs have had since they cut Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz on the same day they did that after Super Bowl 55. So I don't know, man. That needs to be fixed. Like, when you have a franchise quarterback like Mahomes, like Josh Allen, like a Joe Burrow, and a few others out there, the next most important thing is to give him an offensive line. Because if you have the best quarterback in the NFL, great. But if you don't have an offensive line, that'll never work. It just won't. Says Chiefs need better athletes at middle linebacker position. I think the Chiefs need to replace Bolton in the draft and let him walk. Would rather spend money on D-line and pass rush? I don't agree with your assessment of it. Just seems like you don't like Bolton. I disagree with your assessment there. Now, do I agree with possibly replacing him and letting him walk because of the money? Sure. As far as money on pass rushers, I mean, I think you can get Omenihu back for a cheaper price because, again, he hasn't been able to play a full season for you in 2 seasons, including this year. You still have George Karlaftis on a rookie deal. So I think you can avoid spending money on a pass rusher for at least 1 more year. But, man, if Bolton leaves, unless the Chiefs can find the next Nick Bolton in next year's draft, you're going to notice a difference on that defense. I really do. That's why I think the 3-peat has to happen, because I can see the Chiefs taking, I'll say this right now, because, again, Bolton, Smith, you got some things to consider there. I don't think the Chiefs make the AFC Championship game next year because there are going to be a lot of pieces they don't get back, and I think it'll be a little bit of a different season. I still think you'll make the playoffs. I think, the AFC Championship thing appearing in it, it's going to come to an end eventually. Hopefully not this year, so the Chiefs can 3-peat, but it would not surprise me if that was going to be next year. McCole did have a big run to start the comeback against the Texans. Yeah, I do remember that, but that was a while ago, though, John. That was a while ago. Hardman was never going to be a Tyreek. No, he has very similar skill sets to Tyreek. I was thinking about this the other day. McCole was drafted because there was a lot of fear that Tyreek might not play football ever again. It just worked out that they got both Tyreek back and McCole the same offseason. And McCole was great for a young wide receiver behind Watkins and Hill and Kelsey in terms of priorities for who Mahomes would throw to. He was getting involved, but I don't know. We haven't seen much of that. I wonder if they extend McDuffie this offseason. This is McDuffie's third year? So next year's going to be his 4th year. Yeah, he is eligible for that. That'll be interesting. That'll be interesting. I kind of worried that Creed Humphrey was going to hold out because he was eligible for a new deal, and he certainly had reasons to do that. But man, I don't know. Like, these are good problems to have. I mean, the Chiefs have drafted very, very well everywhere. I mean, maybe not everywhere. I know everyone will say wide receivers, and offensive tackle, but it's been tough. John says Joe Tooney is still on the contract for next year. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say Joe Tooney is someone who the Chiefs might cut for salary cap purposes. Why? That dude might be the best offensive guard in football, and you want to cut him because of money? I mean, he's obviously earning what he's making. I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to cut Joe Tooney. Like, he's worth what you're paying him. Veach is going to have to restructure some deals, no question about it. He's been doing that every single time. Listen, I know Chris Jones and Brett Veach kind of had a weird year last year during the offseason, training camp, and the preseason, and obviously into the regular season for just a little bit. But Chris Jones, I mean, is that a guy who you approach about possibly restructuring? I don't know. Because I know Chris Jones has been wanting to get paid, and obviously he became the highest paid defensive tackle of all time. But I think if you're Chris Jones, you got to kind of look around too and be like, yeah, we kind of need some help around here. Not just bringing guys in, but also keeping guys. I think if you're Mahomes, you got to consider that as well. I know listen, you're asking a big thing. You're asking, hey, can you be selfless, take a little bit of less money here, or can we convert it to a bonus? Which players don't mind doing that, but can we do something here to free up cap space? Because that teammate that you love hanging out with, he might leave. That offensive guard who's really good at protecting you, he might leave. So, and it's not easy to replace those guys. It's just not. All right, we're going to be going almost 47 minutes strong here. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. Hey, come back before after the game. Come back after the game. But before that, we will have our halftime live stream. We'll do the Chiefs and Raiders first half recap and preview a little bit of the second half as soon as the halftime period starts, as soon as both teams go into the locker room for halftime. So join me for that. And then after the game, we will do the Chiefs Zone podcast live. I will have the link for you guys to call in. All you have, if you use your phone, your computer, your tablet, whatever it is you guys use after the game, too, if you want to call in, you just got to click on the link, put in your name, turn on your audio and your video, and we'll chat it up after the game. If you are too shy to call in, that's fine. We can always just read your comments after the game as well. Okay, I'm Farzin Vasugian. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. Come back at halftime and after the game. Otherwise, I will talk to you all later. Enjoy the game. Peace out.